fantasy football fans, and welcome to another edition of IDP Dime Drop with me and my man Brandon here. We are covering the Baltimore Ravens, but first I want to remind you, please hit the subscribe here at Gridiron Ratings, which is, Getting Defensive and IDP Dime Drops are all presented by. We have a lot of new content coming out, a lot of it coming out from my man here, Brandon. He's putting out something every week. I'm putting out something every week. We got offense, we got defense, we got you covered. Check out gridironratings.com for us and subscribe here at YouTube. Come on over if you're checking us out on Twitter right now and you'd like to ask some questions about the Baltimore Ravens or any general IDP questions. And we'll keep an eye on the comments as much as possible. I'm trying not to crash and burn. How are you doing this morning, Brandon?
Doing very well, Gary. Excited to sit down with you and talk about these Ravens and explain, all the positions and, give the IDP gamers, some context on the Ravens roster, help the people out.
Yeah. Hey, and Baltimore is always an intriguing defensive unit for when it comes to IDP or just a great fun in the NFL if you're a fan. There's some things going on, though. A couple of little concerns, a couple of little things they need to address. So we're going to break it down for you, and we're going to kick it off wherever Brandon wants to start us.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we could start by just giving a little synopsis on the Ravens. They missed the playoffs this past season. It's important to point out that they had a bunch of injuries on offense and defense. Some key players before the season started, they lost like the top three running backs. And on defense, they lost Marcus Peters, their cornerback. And also Jimmy Smith was banged up going into the season. I think he had like a knee issue, MCL issue. He missed the first two games. But really, the defense really took a big hit. And plus, they had some aging players on the defensive line, the linebackers. It really put them in a bad spot. The secondary was one of the worst in the league last year. They were the worst, 32nd overall. They were number one rush defense, though, ironically. We're going to go off and start off. They have a new defensive coordinator. They fired the old defensive coordinator. The new defensive coordinator is Don Martindale. And reportedly, he's going to run the same system, the 3-4 system. He's not going to make many changes, which is valid because, like we said, they had a bunch of injuries. And so this season, I expect that defensive rebound. We'll start off with the interior defensive line, like we usually do, the non-sexy position.
Right. Well, next to the cornerbacks, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Normally, and more in some cases, not necessarily with the Ravens, though. Go right ahead.
Right. Last season they had Brandon Williams, nose tackle. He was like 30. He's 33 years old. Calais Campbell, 35 years old. He played like the end position in the 3-4, was essentially still an interior defensive lineman. Derek Wolfe, he missed the entire season. He had like some back and hip issues. He was a very productive player for them. More like a pass rushing defensive end in that 3-4 defense. He missed the whole season. Reportedly, he's mulling retirement. It's still up in the air. He said he wants to try to play, but it's still up in the air. And you got another guy, Justin Ellis. All these guys are in their 30s. They're free agents. And they recently signed Michael Pierce. I believe he's like 20 to 29 years old. He spent his first 4 seasons with the Ravens. Last season he played with I believe it was with the Vikings. And they re-signed him like a 3-year, $15 million deal. He's going to play the nose tackle, from what I understand. Which is, basically, like you explained, plugging gaps. It's not really an IDP relevant position. So I don't know if the Gamers want to be rostering Michael Pierce.
Well, he's returning, actually. So, I mean, we have had a little sample of him in this defense before. And I mean, he can generate some pressure. He is one of those guys now. Whether or not we're going to chase the rainbow in his later years here, returning to Baltimore, that remains to be seen. But yeah, I have to agree. It's a fill the gap kind of guy. It's not necessarily his job is to apply pressure when possible, but that's pretty tough when you're head up on that center and you got two guards on either side that's going to help take you out. So that part of the line, I mean, when you look at this depth chart that they have at the moment, they're pretty solid. I mean, it's not like super flashy. If Wolf could get his self together and stay on the field, he could probably make quite a bit of an impact. I mean, he's had a history of making impactful plays, but he definitely needs to get healthy and stay out there to help him out. There's not a lot left anymore out here on free agency, as in anything better than they already have. So they're even talking about maybe bringing in some of these veterans that you're talking about that's moved on, or maybe free agents right now. Some of these older guys, they might have to re-sign some of these guys on the cheap. We'll have to see how that works out for them, though.
Right. I could definitely see them re-signing Calais Campbell. He was still very productive, especially against the run. He was a very solid run defender.
Right.
He didn't do much in the sack department. I believe he had like 2 sacks,
Right.
1.5 sacks.
Right.
Well,
to give him some credit, I mean, when he was really productive, he was out there at defensive end on a 4-3 prior to Jacksonville. Now he's playing inside on a 3-4. So, I mean, it is harder. Plus, he's older, but he's still a beast. He is a really good run defender. I don't know where he'll come into play if he returns. He might see less snaps, but we'll have to see how that rolls. And is there anybody within that interior that you're focused on grabbing? Maybe a starter? If you had to have like a designated interior defensive lineman, or say a defensive tackle position?
Yes, I'm actually very intrigued by third-year interior defensive lineman Justin Madbike is his name. He's 24 years old. He really flashed on tape. His stats last year: 36 tackles, 2 sacks, and 7 tackles for loss. I thought he performed very, very well. You can see when you watch him on tape, he really has a lot of quickness. He's very disruptive in the backfield. So I'm very intrigued by him. I think he has upside to get to maybe 6 or 7 sacks, even playing in that interior position on that defensive line. He's a young and ascending player.
All right. Cool. I'm going to say for my starting unit, I'm not risking anybody directly. We're talking a first guy off the bench, possibly. Depends on your depth, what size league you're in. It's a wait and see for me on most of them. We'll see how that goes. Let's slide on out to the edge rushers. What do you have for us there?
Right, the edge. Once again, this is a position that they probably need to retool a lot of aging veterans, starting off with Justin Houston. He had 4.5 sacks last season. He started all 15 games that he was active. So, he's an older veteran. He's experiencing the decline. He started next to Tyus Bowser. Tyus Bowser started all 17 games. He was active. Tyus Bowser, he injured his Achilles in the last game of the season. He was their leading sack man. He had 7 sacks. So I think it's still up in the air if he's going to be ready for next season. Justin Houston is a free agent. And that leaves us to one of my favorite breakout players at edge rusher. I'm currently writing up. His name is Odafe Oweh. This guy, he's a physical specimen, man.
Yeah.
He's 6'5", 250. He ran a 4.37 at his pro day. And you watch him on film, the guy is just so quick, man. It's mesmerizing watching him play. I was very excited watching film on him. I think he came into the league raw. It's important to note that his college, he had like lackluster production. I think he only had like maybe 7 sacks. But college, guys tend to be in a rotation. They have so much time.
If I remember right, he didn't even play college football at first. He was trying to play basketball or something, or maybe he was playing the 2 sports, but mainly concentrating on basketball. I can't remember.
Right. Yes. I did remember reading a report about basketball was just like his first priority. And
Explaining his rawness and the comparison between him and Parsons. I mean, not maybe exactly physically, but their skill set physically is right along each other. So he was ranked number 2 and only behind Parsons, assuming that Parsons might still rush off the edge. When I recently ranked these second-year guys, and you're hitting it dead on. This I'm going to butcher his name. Oweh is really going to light things up if he gets the opportunity. I don't think they're going to have a choice at this point. They missed out on Jadarius Smith, which kind of hurt him because they could really stand it with Bowser hurt. They could really stand another veteran in there. And Justin Houston, he could return. We was talking about some of the older guys returning, but just hopefully he doesn't cut in anything Oweh is. I mean, Houston's still got some gas in the tank. Don't get me wrong. But with Bowser hurt, we don't know much about Ferguson, which he was a 3rd round pick a couple of years ago. That could be interesting. It's kind of up in the air. This team likes to blitz. I mean, over the last 3 years, they've really blitzed. As you mentioned, they've got a new defensive coordinator. Last year, they actually went down about 10% in how much they had been blitzing. I'm not sure why. There was no rhyme or reason to that. But either way, I don't expect it to fall anymore or probably even go back up if they have to generate it even harder with the talent that they have. We can see them do another later free agent signing. I think once we've seen Carter, I think we just seen Fowler go off the board to Dallas. That's purely, hopefully, a depth move, right? Or big rotational move with Fowler. But either way, I think Clowney might be out there. He could be another good addition. But I'm not sure he's not going to be an edge rusher so much. Clowney would profile more to be on the inside of that 3-4. So I'm not sure how much help he could be. We'll have to see what they do. They're probably going to look at this stuff in the draft. They're probably going to have to see what they can do in the draft. What are your thoughts on getting some more edge rushers? I mean, I love Oweh. Don't get me wrong, but even if they add Justin Houston, they still need something. Bowser's hurt. Ferguson's a question. Thoughts?
Right. I'm mirroring your sentiments. They need somebody next to Oweh if he's going to reach his potential. They're going to need another veteran to come in. Right. So look, it's possible that Justin Houston gets signed, especially if Bowser's not going to be ready. There's not much out there as far as free agents.
Right. You know what would be excited? And I don't know why, but, and Anthony Barr has not necessarily played an outside edge rusher role, but he had, for Minnesota all these years, he's been more of and I think Buffalo before, he's been more of a strong side linebacker that rushes, but I think that would be a really good signing to sign him to play outside rusher, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's very intriguing thought. Because I know he came into the league as like a pass rusher, and Minnesota, they pretty much turned him into an outside linebacker.
Right.
He hasn't really generated a whole bunch of sack production in his career, but that would be a very intriguing thing for the Ravens to do. Sign Anthony Barr, and let him rush the passer off the edge. I think he can probably put up some career stats possibly in the sack
Sure.
department.
Right. All right. Well, I think that sums that up. So where you want to move to next?
Yeah, before we move on, I know you were mentioning the draft picks. They probably have to invest draft picks
Right.
into the position. Yeah, I agree. That first round pick, they might go edge rusher. I know corner is another weakness. We'll get into that. Uh, they have a bunch of picks. They have a first and second rounder. They have like 2/3 and 5 fourth-round picks. So they have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ammunition to solve some of their needs.
Mm-hmm. They
So it
might
should
be
be
able to pick it.
interesting what they do as far as edge rusher, because they need to add somebody to help Oweh out.
Yeah,
Very
and that's
intrigued by Oweh.
their problem is they do have those thirds and fifths, so they are going to be able to sprinkle in help, rookie help. But I mean, when it really comes up to, I don't know what kind of quality starter you're going to get there. You might get lucky, we'll have to see. But it's going to be really interesting, and they do have other positions that they need to still find some depth for. So let's see what we have.
Yeah, should definitely be interesting. You're right. I know you're not high on those rookies because they struggle their first year as far as playing time, everything.
Yeah.
So definitely going to need like a veteran edge rusher to help Oweh out. Anthony Barr that's a very intriguing thought right there.
I think that would be hot. I think him at an outside linebacker position in a 3-4 anywhere would be really interesting to see. I mean, it's not that big of a difference in translation because he rushed, the quarterback in Minnesota too. So I'm sure he could handle it.
Right. Okay. So we'll move on to the inside linebackers. Uh, their top inside linebacker is Patrick Queen. To me, he's been very disappointing from a real life and IDP perspective. He led the team in tackles with 98 combined tackles. But they put him in this rotation. He finished 76% of the snaps. He rotated in with Bynes and some other guys. They said he was giving up. He gave up a bunch of big plays in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you watch him, he just looks like a lackluster player, like a very average player at linebacker. He has trouble shedding blocks and things.
Right.
His film. I mean, he's just unimpressive. Even the beat reporters were saying that they might possibly try to get an upgrade at middle linebacker, and they need to, because I don't think they can continue to go into the season with Queen in there and him struggling. They rotating in these other guys. The second guy was Josh Bynes. He's 32 years old. He finished with like 61% of the snaps. He's one of the guys that was rotating in and out for them. He had 76
And there's
tackles.
possibility that he could return too. They do like him in return. And when they actually got him back into the rotation last year, then they moved Queen back over to the weak side instead of the strong side in that formation. Right. And Queen did play a touch better. He the problem is that I had read about from the reports are they feel like that he is overthinking the scheme, overthinking the defense itself, and not reacting in time. So they tried to relieve that by moving him over where they would like to have him. Originally they would like to have Harrison playing the weak side, but he hasn't quite worked out. So you putting Queen over there on that weak side, it looks like is what they're thinking about doing, as long as they can find a serviceable or a solid guy to play that strong side. They don't necessarily want Queen going back in there having to think it out. So we'll see. I mean, they've even been known. Now they do have a different defensive coordinator, but they even had, a few years back, Chuck Clark called the
Right.
Plays for him. So, there's a couple of things that could happen here, but as long, as unsatisfying as Patrick Queen's been, if he's out there, we got to have him. He's going to be productive. So just at what level, I don't know. It's questionable if we're ever going to see a true tier one guy out of him. He's really got to prove something this year, I think, to even hold out hope the rest of his career, at least in fantasy football, that we're going to be satisfied with taking a high pick on him or something for Queen. So and Malik Harrison, again, he's been a disappointment. Originally, they thought that he might work out. Maybe it's third year for both of these guys, so maybe we see something. So maybe something clicks. Who knows? Maybe they make that adjustment. I don't think that they'll put Malik Harrison over on the strong side, but anything can happen. So, and again, they might rotate, but there are still a few inside linebackers or off the ball linebackers that they could look into in free agency, and there is the draft. So I guess it depends. They also need some offensive line help, I know. But other than that, their other priorities are probably on this defense.
Right. Secondary, I believe. But we'll get into that in a second. Well, yeah, Queen. I mean, he's been producing like a low end LB2.
Right.
He's been very disappointing, and also Malik Harrison. He's been a disappointment. He's been playing mostly special teams, and looks like he struggles in coverage from looking at the metrics. That's probably why he's not getting much playing time.
Right.
They got some other guys, Welch and Board, but they're not really relevant. They're mostly special teams players. They barely got any defensive snaps.
If that ain't cash, they should chase down Bobby Wagner.
Oh, yeah. I was going to mention that. We mentioned Bobby Wagner. Go to the Rams, and you thinking of some other teams that he can go to. I think Baltimore will be perfect for him.
Yep. I don't know if they got the cash for that, but yeah, seeing Bobby go over to Baltimore would be a great thing. If you guys didn't know, last night, catch us on Getting Defensive with JJ Winter. We talked about, I got to rant actually about Bobby Wagner still being a free agent and how he's screwing up Ernest Jones's Rams IDP futures right now. So hopefully, at last I seen just not an hour or two ago, because I can't quit looking. They haven't said any more about Bobby Wagner, so I don't know if he's just shacked up there and they're trying to work some deals with some contracts or something, because they still got some things to take care of. See, you got me rattling on. Now we're off topic, man. So we're going to get back on to Baltimore here, though. So that's what he was referring to, is all I wanted to mention.
Well, yeah, that would definitely be a disappointment if Bobby Wagner comes in and takes that spot from Ernest Jones. Ernest Jones is definitely, one of the biggest breakouts. Looking like one of the biggest breakouts next season.
Huge stamp right there on him, man. Come on, let him have it, right? All right, so what are you doing with Patrick Queen? Are you even... I mean, as it stands, we know what production by default means anyways, but his consistency and stability and in keeping any consistency has not been there, even when he's really gotten his chance. So, I mean, if you're sitting in a draft and he's coming up, are you definitely looking in the second wave of linebackers off the board, or are you willing to reach and see if you get a little more out of Patrick this year?
I mean, he's not appealing to me. I'd rather, reach for somebody with more upside, like Pete Warner, who I wrote up. I think he has big time upside.
Right.
I explained in my article his metrics are at an elite level. His tackle rate was like 15%, and his missed tackle rate like 1%, which is like mind blowing.
Right.
His mind-blowing upside, and he's projected to be the starting linebacker in New Orleans.
Right.
So I'm looking at some of these other guys. I probably prefer over Queen, but I mean, if I
which is shocking that we're having this conversation and actually saying that, because Patrick Queen has almost got no upside right now because of how he's performed and what's happened and what we know. So yeah, that's pretty wild, man. I don't think I've ever drafted him. I don't think at the first I ever had a chance to. And then after that, it's just been like, oh, I'm glad I didn't. Right. So Yeah, that's pretty interesting, man, that we're having this conversation. And hey, you guys need to check out Brandon's content online at gridirons.com. Just go to the IDP article page. You'll see quite a few of his key and diagnosis articles. So, all right. Well, as it is stands right now, they got three guys. Or wait a minute. How many guys they got even signed? Inside linebacker, according to what I have, they only have Harrison, Queen, and Welch, whoever Welch is, signed at this moment. So, we're going to see something. Maybe they would go grab somebody, something like, I keep mentioning this guy's name, but Kaiser White, or somebody along that line that might be serviceable. They're going to have to add somebody, whether via draft or free agency, just basically in depth. You've got to get some more depth. They'll never make it.
Yeah, definitely. I can see them signing somebody either before or just waiting to after the draft, finding somebody and picking them up, as a veteran presence. And they could also draft a linebacker too.
Right.
They can do both, draft a rookie and sign a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
They can kind of, take over the spot for a while until the rookie's ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess that leaves us moving on to the secondary.
Right.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. They lost a couple guys. Deshaun Elliott, he's a free agent. He only played he's only played 3 seasons. He's still a young safety, but he missed most of the season. He had a pectoral injury. So they moved on from him because they signed Marcus Williams from New Orleans, their free safety. So he's going to replace Deshaun Elliott. And I'm excited about Marcus Williams, not really from a fantasy perspective, but as far as fixing that secondary, because they had the last ranked secondary in the league, 32nd, and they gave up a bunch of big plays. I think signing Marcus Williams was a very important signing for them to cut down on those big plays. His metrics, he was like a top 5 safety in coverage, only allowed like a 47% completion percentage, and very low QB rating when he was targeted. So
yeah, it doesn't really show an IDP box scores or anything, but I mean, the guy is a ball hawk, and that's why he got paid like one. 70 mil is no joke.
Right.
I'm kind of like you. I excited for the team that they're sharing that up. They were 32nd, but like you said, they had a lot of injuries. So just some guys coming in healthy, we should expect, as long as that starting unit, the main core, Humphreys, Peters, Chuck Clark, Marcus Williams, are all healthy. If those 4 main guys are healthy, and they get, I think Brandon Stevens is also in there, and he might be playing some nickel or in the slot. And then you got Tony Jefferson, which came in towards last year and playing this a nickel backer in this situation, which it might be another option if they have to. Maybe they can transform him into a linebacker with Patrick Queen, but we don't know. We won't know until they get on the field to begin with. But where are you looking at with Chuck Clark, which has kind of regressed a little bit? He hasn't ever really peaked, other than I think he had one really good year. Happened to be the year I called him out as a breakout. But then after that, he's kind of mellowed off, and they took the green dot away from him. I thought that was going to be a good thing. But I think, again, last year's injuries put him out of position to where they really would like to play him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like Chuck Clark as a real life player. He's very impressive in coverage. He made some big plays last season. But you are right. Looking at the numbers, his tackle numbers dipped down. He only had like 80 combined tackles last season. So I mean, that's like a low end. He's pretty much producing as a low end DB2.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely consider some other options, some other players with upside.
My concern with Chuck Clark, and I'm a huge fan too. You guys, most of anybody knows that. But either way, when it comes to, I don't understand where the production went. I'm not sure, exactly how he didn't get to produce and consistently, especially after the secondary got hurt. That's kind of weird. You would have expected him to come up in production, but it didn't happen. So, but again, we don't know how they were exactly deciding where everybody was lining up and what everybody's responsibilities were. So maybe that'll change this year. Where are you willing to draft him? Are you sticking with the DB2 area? Are you picking him up for a starter in a deeper format? Are you even thinking about going there?
Not unless I'm desperate.
Yeah. Yep.
Because the production, like you said, it dipped down.
Right.
So
Right.
like you'd be like a bench player.
Right. First guy off the bench type,
Right.
bi-week player maybe. And again, I started to say I was really concerned last year because, it does happen, or last year and actually the year before, is that when production dips, you still have a really talented person there, or a player there, so you can rely on these matchups and the matchup strengths in season. And when we do that, then you want to watch for consistent. When the matchup is right and the numbers are there, they actually produce. They have no problem producing every time that comes up. And unfortunately for Chuck, I gave up on him after a couple of weeks because he wasn't even matching the matchup strength. So, that's just a red flag. So I think I moved on from him in a couple of leagues as a depth player last year. So, all right. So we're going to let you take over then and talk about any of the rest of the secondary because they're corners, and I don't have too big of an opinion other than if I've got Humphreys, I'm still hanging on to him just to see what happens.
Yeah. You mentioned Stevens, the rookie. He was like forced into action with the Elliott injury. That's one of the reasons why their secondary struggled so bad. They had a rookie in there, giving up some big plays back there. So them signing Williams and then Clark in there, I expect the secondary to be much improved. So moving on to the corners, I know they had Anthony Levine. He was like their slot cornerback. They released him. He had a terrible season. He was giving up big plays all season long. He started all. He played all 17 games. He had one start. So they got rid of him. But
he's been around for a long time. The guy actually he's older. He's older. He filled a few years back. He used to be a really good backup or a really good option for them as a backup. But yeah, he's not quite the same dude. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right. Anthony Levine. Yeah, I'm sorry. He's a safety. He's a free agent. The guy they released was actually Tavon Young. He was a nickel cornerback. He was one that was giving up a bunch of big plays. And they ended up releasing him, but they don't have to depend on him anymore because they got Marcus Peters coming back. Marcus Peters, he tore his ACL in the preseason. They lost him right before the season. It was a crazy string of events for Baltimore. They lost a bunch of people right before the season.
Right.
J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards.
Right.
There was another running back. Justin Hill went down, and then Marcus Peters. They were like very unlucky last season.
Yes, they were.
But so Peters returning back, he's going to stabilize that secondary. He's a big play guy. He's popped up, in fantasy as a big play. He's very popular because he returns with interceptions for touchdowns. So I look forward to seeing him play next year. He's going to be starting opposite of Marlon Humphrey, who is their top corner.
Mm-hmm.
He's been like a top 5 cornerback in IDP.
Which is unusual because Peterson's also another good option. So there's not a lot of NFL defensive squads out there with 2 serviceable IDP cornerbacks or defensive backs from those two positions at the cornerback, which is kind of odd. You have some teams that have none. Most teams have one because it's the guy that get picked on. But instead, in this situation, you have two high-quality starters that are both playmakers. And in the past, they have been able to pull it off.
Right. And I was impressed watching Marlon Humphrey, his tape. I mean, he plays, he's a good cover corner.
Mm-hmm.
He plays like a safety, the way they use him. They put him in the slot and they blitz him. And he's a very good tackler for a corner.
Mm-hmm.
So guys like him, Kenny Moore, those guys are great tacklers. And that's why they're so IDP relevant, because they're aggressive, attacking the run.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really impressed watching tape on Marlon Humphrey. He's a solid player. I know his play kind of dipped off in coverage. He's given up some big plays. A game against the Raiders, he gave up the game-winning touchdown to Zay Jones. And I think Jamar Chase got him a couple times last year. He had a 20-yard game against them. So I'm expecting a rebound season for Humphrey and that entire secondary.
Yeah. All right. Well, as far as beyond that secondary, which we've named the two starting corners, which is Peters, Humphreys, and then you got probably Stevens, I think, playing the nickel. I think is what I seen the rumor was. And then you got Williams, a free safety, and then you got Chuck. So that's 5 main DBs probably. Beyond that, if they go into this season as they sit right now, I believe they'll really be hurting, maybe even worse. Can they go negative 32? If that injury bug hit them guys again, they would almost have trouble fielding a real, even decent secondary. What do you think?
Right. I think they're going to add some people. I was reading an article on them, and the coach was saying that, they need 8 solid guys. I think that they were talking about safety and cornerback, entire secondary. 8 guys, 8 solid guys they can depend on. And they notated how the injuries derailed their season. Right. So I don't think they're going to risk it going in, with just these few guys here. They're going to definitely probably draft somebody high and probably add some veteran help as well.
Yeah. They had a couple of guys last year. Avert, I think was his name. Yeah. He had to step in. I think he's a free agent right now. I won't think.
Yeah, he left. He signed with the Raiders.
Right. So yeah, that one he wasn't that bad. That's funny about Young. You said that they just released him for allowing all that. There were actually games that he was serviceable. I know from doing my start-sit charts, I actually streamed cornerbacks until I hit one that's consistent. And he actually, a couple of weeks I used him. He was able to go to the matchup strength and produce, but that production apparently was by default. Still counts, right? It's IDP.
Good for fantasy, terrible for real life.
Right. So it sounds like, they still got a lot of work to do to this defense in total, but the odds are they're not, unless they go sign something like Bobby Wagner, or maybe we see something on Clowney or something like that. I don't know how much secondary meat's on the bone in free agency right now, but they need to do something. And we're just going to have to take a note of who that person is. Anthony Barr. Come on, Anthony Barr. Let's see what he looks like in Baltimore. All right. So I guess we're going to wrap this up. You got any final thoughts for us in this IDP dive drop, Brandon?
As far as the Ravens are concerned, I think they're going to be back in the playoffs. This is a very talented roster. It was just, very unfortunate to have all the injuries on offense and defense. Guys returning like Marcus Peters and then signing of Marcus Williams, the free safety. They're sure to add depth to their secondary. So I think they're going to be improved, and they're definitely going to be in the playoff hunt.
Yeah. So if you had one guy you could have off of this unit, who are you taking?
The guy I'm most improved about, we talked about him, is edge rusher Odafe Oweh. I'm very intrigued by him. I think he can be one of the top pass rushers.
Yeah.
Possibly get definitely double-digit sacks.
Yeah.
Maybe I wouldn't be surprised he gets 12 plus sacks next season.
Yeah.
I'm that high on him. He's
Oh
just
yeah.
a huge specimen. He
Yep.
has a lot of speed. You just watch him. I think he's
Dude's
more
got the
polished.
twitch. Yeah, dude's
Yeah,
got the twitch, doesn't he? He's a wham. He's in there. But
yeah,
he developed those, and that's what he did last year, and that's probably what he's going to be doing this year. He's just going to develop a few more moves, instead of just, being quick and getting around him. He's got to learn to get hands around, do some spins, do some things that they need to do to get after the rusher. But that can all be taught. And he certainly has shown that he can be taught how to play football. So, he's just coming into his prime. I mean, he's still. I mean, realistically, a lot of kids or a lot of guys, they play football their entire lives, and he didn't really basically start until college. So he's just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah, I love him, and I think we'll be talking about him as a top 5 edge rushing guy within the next few years. I don't know if he can break out that big this year. I think he needs at least another year. We're talking that top 5. But I think it's potentially there. It's potentially there. We'll be talking about Parsons and him for a long time, probably.
right, yeah. I was more impressed. I know we talked about Quiddy Pay, I think a couple weeks ago,
Right.
but I think Owe is much further ahead of Pay.
Right.
I notated.
Well, and it's 2 different positions realistically too. I mean, they're still considered edge rushers, but it's like the guy up there in Buffalo, Rose. He would come in 3rd for me, by the way. I think I had Kitty Pay 4th or 5th. But I mean, it's the position. They're playing a hands down defensive end versus Oweh playing an outside linebacker stand up edge rusher. It's a little bit different comparison. We can expect combined tackles to be there for Oweh too, so that helps support any of these double digits that we should be seeing here soon from him.
Right, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Owe is up there with Parsons as far as production next season. I'm very excited about rostering him on my fantasy team.
Yeah. Hey, so we're going to wrap this up. Again, we'd like to remind you, hit subscribe, check out all the content that we have coming out on our Gridiron Ratings YouTube channel. Check out gridironratings.com. Please follow my friend Brandon Jackson. He's really insightful. He also knows that dirty O. If you got any questions, hit the follow on Twitter at bjackson80 or bjack83. And if you ain't got anything else for us, we'll just tell you we're going to switch till Fridays, probably around that 10 o'clock range. And we look forward to seeing you next week. What do you think, Brandon?
Yeah, definitely. I enjoy doing these dime drops with you and, providing the info, doing the research on these players. And I look forward to doing it in the future. We're going to be doing some big things this year, Gary. I'm very excited.
I'm excited to have you on, man. You've as advertised, what I had in my mind, you've already blew those expectations out of the water, folks. You've got to follow them at bjack83, and we're out of here.